Hi, I'm ReveloGM and welcome back to another video on Critical Role in Pathfinder 2e Remaster. Now, not Keyleth this week, we're instead taking another look at Grog. Why? Well, Paizo recently released a new book, Battle Cry, exclamation mark included. It adds new equipment, feats, spells, classes, rules for running skirmishes and wars and lots more. Very cool, but it also adds a new ancestry, the Jotunborn. Maybe you can see where we're going with this. Last time we made Grog, we used Orc with the Winter Orc heritage and the feats Adrenaline Rush, Athletic Might and Defy Death, which honestly work pretty damn well. However, with the Jotunborn being associated with giants and stuff like that, it feels like we should take a look at how this would change our level 9 Grog, with in 5e him being a Goliath, which is very much a giant associate kind of race. Let's start by taking a look at the background we get for the Jotunborn. This is all on Archives of Nethys, by the way. The Jotunborn isn't on Path Builder just yet, and I don't have the PDF. We're going through a low spending month. But be warned, this is a wall of text. Jotunborn were forged from the blood of an ancient group of giants called Titans, tasked to watch over the universe. According to their oldest stories, the first Jotunborn were direct creations of the earliest gods. Having just completed the majority of the creation of Golarion, these gods created several groups of people to act as stewards for this new world. Among these groups were the Jotunborn, beings who were formed from the remains of titans who dared rebel against the gods in the earliest days of existence. Rather than give Jotunborn the full power they gave the titans, the gods instead instilled the first Jotunborn with the faintest spark of creation and gave them slighter forms. These new servitors would be just as capable at helping shape the rest of Golarion, but also be weaker and easier to strike down should they rebel like their progenitors. Fortunately for the gods, Jotunborn saw no reason to rebel and dedicated themselves outright to their duties. These first Jotunborn used their abilities to grow mountains, carve out rivers, and more as they continued to mould Golarion at the behest of the gods. When the task was done, the gods took the first Jotunborn and placed them in the space between the mortal universe and the ethereal plane. This subplanar space sat beneath the surface of the universe and served as the new home for Jotunborn. The gods commanded the Jotunborn remain in this realm, watch over their creation from afar, and return to the surface of the universe to tend it during times of great need. Now, Jotunborn remain mysterious beings whose existence is only briefly mentioned in scattered points through history. They are tasked to return to Golarion only when there is a major disaster, natural or otherwise, and that changes the world. Jotunborn then appear to assess the issue and determine what steps to take to return the world to a more stable state. This typically only draws a handful of Jotunborn to the world. Earthfall caused a mass arrival of Jotunborn, though their visit was brief, and in the wake of the god's reign, hundreds of Jotunborn have appeared once more. Unlike past visitors, these Jotunborn can't easily return to their home. Now these gigantic humanoids must learn to adapt to life among the people of Golarion. If you want to play a character who is a towering being with the potential of creation and has a unique connection to planar powers, you should play a Jotunborn. Now I've now said Jotunborn too many times, but it's probably going to keep on happening. So there we are. Now, some of that last paragraph relates to specific Golarion lore, even more so than the rest of it, which is pretty cool, but you can go elsewhere for, safe to say, these are not just a reskin of the Goliath from 5th edition. These beings are crafted by the gods and tasked with protecting and helping fix the material plane with some minor powers over creation themselves as well. So honestly, I'm inclined to keep Grog as a reskinned orc, as that feels more in line with the Goliath and his Herd of Storms past. But let's be thorough and take a look at this ancestry and how it would change Grog anyway, because it will be fun. So at level 1, you choose your race. It has the rare trait, which checks out based on the above, even with hundreds, that's still a very small amount of them in the overall world, as well as having the words humanoid, Jotunborn, and giant. Their HP is the same at 10 hit points from the ancestry, and so is their speed at 25 feet, but for size you are large, double the height of the average human apparently. Orcs are medium, so there we are. They get a boost to strength or wisdom and a free boost for their attributes, and interestingly have a flaw in charisma. I suppose they don't get out that much, they've got a lot of learning to do with how to deal with these other races and people and ancestries and stuff. Orcs get 2 free boosts of their choice and no flaws. The Jotunborn can speak Jotun and Common, and additional languages equal to their intelligence modifier if it's positive. They choose from the Cyclops, Dwarven, Empyrean, Fey, Orcish, Petran, Shadow Tongue, and any other languages which you would have access to, like prevalent ones in the region and such. Which is exactly the same as Orc, but with the options switched out, and Jotun for Orc, of course. Jotunborn do have low light vision, as opposed to Orc's dark vision, and then the Jotunborn have one final mechanic, which sort of relates to low light vision, which is called Evlar Weaving. Evlar Weaving? Say that 3 times fast. It's got 2 eyes. Evlar, I think. It's a planar thread produced by creatures called Evlars, which is woven into the skin of the Jotunborn. This thread glows with a dim light in a 10-foot emanation, and you can sustain yourself with the sustain action to extinguish it, reactivate it, or just the coloration of this light. So there we go. Makes sense why they'd have low light vision as standard, because that means they can just see bright light within 10 feet of them at all times. It's not huge, but checks out. So there are some similarities and some changes there, but clearly they are 2 very different options. Let's have a look at the heritage as well. Not so much to compare them here, but there's a bunch of options, so let's just check them. And if you're still here, maybe subscribe. I'll be having more videos like this, including level 9 Pathfinder Keyleth and the rest of Critical Role out in the coming months. And I've got a whole bunch that I've already done, including Vax and Scanlan and Percy. Our first heritage for Jotunborn is the Keeper Jotunborn. Your work as an Evlar Keeper has granted you a greater understanding of these sacred creatures and the ability to track them, as elusive as they may be. You are trained in survival, and you gain the Survey Wildlife skill feat. You get a +1 circumstance bonus to track animals. Cool, yeah, so keeping an eye on like the creatures of the land and ensuring that they are safe and stuff. That's kind of the Keeper Jotunborn's angle, which makes sense. Next we have the Plane Hopper Jotunborn. You're chosen for your smaller size that allows you to move between planar thresholds with ease. You generally serve as a messenger or scout, and planar exposure is going to your spark magical power. Instead of large, your size is medium. You gain 1 cantrip from the occult spell list, and you can cast this spell as an occult innate spell at will. The cantrip is heightened to a spell equal to half your level rounded up. Yeah, cool. Yeah, makes sense. Messengers, scouts, and that you'd gain a bit of magic with that. And they're smaller, they're actually medium, so good to know. Next we have the Sage Jotunborn. You are tasked with keeping oral and stitch histories for your family, your clan, or even your entire settlement. You're trained in society, and also gain the additional law general feat for a law skill of your choice. Okay, yeah. If you live all by yourselves on this subplane, you probably want to keep track of that history, because there is literally no one else to do it. Warrior Jotunborn, which is probably, you know, what we would give Grog if we were going to. Your hardier body made you a perfect recruit for combat. The damage die for your fist increases to 1d6, and you don't take a penalty when making a lethal attack with your fist. Grog's fists can certainly be lethal, so this one would probably be the one for him. And finally we have the Weaver Jotunborn. You've mastered the art of Evlar silk weaving. Whether this case is coming up at the exact same kind of time as Hollow Knight Silk Song, but there we go. A technique that requires a fine attention to detail. You're trained in crafting, and you get a +1 circumstance bonus to perception checks to seek when searching for hidden details like secret doors or traps. So it's very attuned to very fine details and things like that, based on this silk weaving, which is also part of how you were woven, it seems. And then of course we have the versatile heritages as well. So yeah, I think a warrior Jotunborn would make a lot of sense for Grog if we had to choose one, certainly more than the others. I think none of them particularly fit him, apart from one that would make him medium in size, but would make him a scout and a messenger, which isn't really his style. They're all very cool heritages, but it shows that we're going in a very different direction with these giant creatures. Finally, let's have a look at some of the feats. We'll go through the ones up to level 9, as that's the level our Grog is currently, so it makes sense to do it that way to me. We have Caretaker's Intuition, which means your forebears had a deep understanding of the natural world around them, and you've learned some of their knowledge and techniques. You're trained in nature, and if you'd automatically become trained in nature from your background, you can choose another skill. And additionally, while outdoors, you can spend 10 minutes to read the sky and determine the weather. You get a general impression of the weather up to 8 hours in advance. You can use this to determine that clear skies or rainstorm are ahead, but not specifics like wind speed and direction, or that a tornado would be occurring later. Pretty fun. Caretaker's Restoration is a free action that can be triggered once per day when an item you're holding, wearing, or wielding becomes broken but not destroyed. The stewarding abilities of your forebears allow you to repair broken objects important to you. The triggering item is restored to a number of hit points that is one higher than its broken threshold. For example, Steel Shield with broken threshold 10 would be 11. Cool, fixing. I certainly like the idea of like surveying and fixing for the most part that we're going with a lot of these feats and heritages. Jotun's Eyes converts our low light vision to dark vision, always a classic one. Jotun Grappler, wrestling is a common pastime for Jotunborn, and you've done your fair share. You're trained in athletics, and if you automatically become trained in athletics, you choose another one, and you gain the Titan Wrestler feat, another classic. Makes sense for these very large, muscly creatures, though, to do something like wrestling when they're bored. Jotunborn Law is another one that we almost always get with things, as is going to be the next one, which is, weapon familiarity. You get additional law, general feat, and the Jotunborn Law. You can train in occultism or survival. And weapon familiarity, you become familiar with the uncommon weapons, with the Jotunborn trait. That's the bowler, the great axe, halberd, a more long spear, and warflail for the purpose of proficiency. You treat any of these other martial weapons as simple, and any that are advanced as martial. Pretty cool. And finally, plane stepping dash, which is a once per day thing. You move with the magical swiftness, treading between planar boundaries to shorten your journey. You stride once, and the stride does not trigger reactions normally triggered by movement. Once the stride is complete, you gain a +5 status bonus to your speed until the start of your next turn for one action. That's the teleportation trait and the occult trait. Pretty cool. Interesting that we're treating these as occult beings rather than divine ones too. Call the First Tools is a 3-action level 5 feat with the Concentrate and Manipulate traits in addition to Jotunborn and Occult, which can be used once per day. You call upon the ancient power bestowed upon you by the gods to create any tools you might need at a moment's notice. You can conjure forth a simple tool, such as a shovel or hammer, into your hands. It remains conjured until your next steady preparations, or as long as it's simple, so long as it's in your person. If the tool leaves your possession for more than 1 minute, it falls apart into a pile of silk, and then dissolves into nothingness. We're really keeping this whole weaving silk theme. It's cool. And then at 9th level, you can use this ability once per hour instead of once per day. When using it in this way, you can maintain only one tool at a time, and the previous ones dissolve into nothingness. That's pretty cool. Jotun's battle stance is 1 action. You emulate the battle stance of your forebears, allowing you to use mighty weapons to attack distant foes. While in this stance, you wield a melee weapon that requires 2 hands and doesn't have a reach, and it gains a reach of 10 feet. That's pretty fun. Jotun's Grasp is you've mastered a technique that allows you to close the gap on foes and wrestle them into submission. You step and attempt an athletics check to grapple a creature. Got to be an expert in athletics to do that, and it's 1 action. That's quite fun. Planar Resilience is your body has adapted to the variety of harsh climes that you'll encounter in your travels. You treat temperature-based environmental effects as if they're 1 step less extreme. Incredible cold or heat becomes less extreme, so on and so forth. So this is kind of a bit more similar to what you would see with like the Winter Orc, but it's a bit more powerful because it's a feat at level 5 rather than a first level thing. And you can choose either cold or fire and gain resistance to that damage type equal to half your level minimum 1. So there we go. We could get that a little bit closer to a Goliath with that feat. Pounding Leap is 2 actions. And you use the momentum of your massive fists to launch yourself through the air, strike with your fist unarmed attack, and then attempt a high or long jump. You count as having a running start and do not need to stride before this activity to avoid failure. You can attempt this strike against an unattended object or unoccupied flat surface to gain a +2 circumstance bonus to your athletics check to do a high or long jump. And you treat the AC as 10, that's fun. That's pretty cool. Would probably take that one for Grog. Jotun's Grasp would also be cool, and so would Jotun's Battle Stance, but he definitely does some big leaps. This could be quite fun with that, though. Those 2 other ones would work as well, I'm sure. Probably Jotunborn Grappler for the level 1, though. And finally, for now, the level 9 ones, we have Build the First Walls, which is similar, I think, to Call the First Tools, which is 3 actions again. It has a Concentrate, Earth, Manipulate traits, and it's once per day. The powers of creation that run through allow you to conjure a temporary wall. You create a wall of dirt with the effects of a wall of stone, with the following exceptions. The wall can be up to 60 feet long and 10 foot high, and must stand vertically, preventing you from building other structures with it. Each 10 foot by 10 foot section of the wall has AC 10, Hardness 10, and 20 hit points, and it remains for 1 hour or until dismissed. Nice creation thing again. Evilar's Deflection is a reaction. The trigger is you are struck by a critical hit that deals physical damage, and the prerequisites are the Keeper Jotunborn heritage. Yeah, the Pounding Leap had the Warrior Jotunborn heritage. You're able to use silk woven into your skin to deflect attacks, reducing the deadliness of grievous blows. You attempt a DC 17 flat check. If you're successful, that becomes a normal hit. I think the automatons or the constructs or one of them have a similar option to that one. And then Jotun's Boost, which is 2 actions and has a manipulate trait. You have to have at least 1 hand free and be adjacent to an ally. Your giant might allows you to pick up your allies and hurl them across the battlefield. Pick up an adjacent willing ally who's smaller than you and toss them to an occupied space you see within 25 feet. If you have 2 hands free, you can instead toss them to a space within 30 feet. Your allies' movement doesn't trigger reactions, and they end their movement on their feet and don't take damage from the fall. If they end their movement within melee reach of one enemy, they can make a melee strike against an enemy within their reach as a reaction. That's pretty cool, and probably would give Grog, I think, seeing that Evil's affection is probably going to be off limits. And definitely, I'm pretty sure has a mode where he like grabs or picks up Scanlan and Pike and throws them, if not others. And then finally, for now, Plane Step, which is to concentrate, move, and teleportation traits. 2 actions. You temporarily move just beyond the threshold of your current plane, granting you concealment until the end of your next turn. You remain clearly visible while stepping outside of a plane in this way, and you can't use concealment to hide or sneak. Okay. Intriguing. I don't know what exactly you'd use that for. I mean, you'd use it for concealment, so you'd be concealed, which makes you harder to target, but you can't use it to, like, avoid something's notice. You're just kind of not exactly there, so I suppose that's why. So there we go. That is a brief look at the Jotunborn, kind of through the guise of if we would change Grog to be one of them rather than a sort of slightly reskinned orc. And yeah, I think we'll keep with the orc actually, but let me know if you'd do it differently. Maybe it's a Dromar variant heritage, or just go full on the Jotunborn and just make him a bit different. Let me know down in the comments below. In addition to just what you think about this ancestry in general. It's certainly a different style of giant kind of ancestry race than what I've seen before. It makes some degree of sense when you look at lots of ancient mythology with these giant things being creators, not just destroyers, but certainly not what I was expecting when I initially heard that they're going to be doing a more giant race. So that's interesting, and I'd be interested to see what you have to say about this. But otherwise, when we get to the ancestry feats at high levels for the Critical Role party, I will try and remember to have a quick look at the level 13 and 17 ones for this character as well, and see what we have them in some kind of little addendum. But for now, that's it. Thank you for watching. If you like this, please like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. I'm still aiming for 500 subscribers by the end of the year. I think my speed on that's been put off a bit by the last month being very busy with moving, but I'm going to cross my fingers and hope I can get back into the swing of things now and get the content coming out again, because I have missed doing this. But that's all for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.